Good day! Today we're going to be working on graphing our data. This way we can get useful information out of it instead of just being a pile of numbers. Now the approach I'm going to take today is I'm going to open up Excel. In this case I have Microsoft Excel 2010. It looks fairly similar to 2007. Obviously haven't seen what the newer ones are going to look like just yet. Similar story is going to go on with the older versions, although they do look a little bit different and you'll have to get used to where things are put. So to start with, I've placed my data. Now, in this case, I've got two different samples, and their x values don't quite correspond. So what I've done is I've put the x values in two different columns. And the x values for these samples are going to be my time. So I've got my time over here, and I've got my time for sample 2 over there. If these happen to be the same numbers, say both were 4, both were 5, both were 6, then I wouldn't have to worry about it, and I'd just use 1. But in this case, they are different, so I'm going to use two different values. Now I've got my recorded data, which in this case is temperature, for both of my samples. So how am I going to start? I'm going to start by highlighting one of my two samples. I'm going to go up to here to insert. I'm going to go scatter. And really the only one we normally use is this scatter with marks. There's a couple of specialized equations or times where we'll use these guys, but generally this is the one graph science we use. So we hit scatter with marks. I kind of move it somewhere on the screen that I can still see. And I've got this guy, but I need to do some serious work on formatting. First things first, let's get the appropriate labels where they need to be. I'm going to go up to the format, and I'm going to choose layout 1. It's a nice format. I've got some axis titles, but right now they're literally axis title, so I need to make them something useful. Well, this guy's my x-axis. This is time in seconds. So I can do time seconds, and kind of click off the area. I've got my y-axis title. I'll highlight that, do the old Control-A thing. And I'll do temp, and that's going to be in degrees C. Now, my title up here, generally we're going to do a title of y versus x. You can do usually whatever you'd like, but y versus x is a very standard title format. So I'll get rid of the C. I'll do versus, and my x is time. So I've got temperature versus time. Now I'm pretty good. But I still want to clean this guy up a little bit more. Well, first things first, I notice I've got those annoying lines. I'm just going to get rid of them by highlighting them. I clicked on one of them. They're now selected. You notice the little blue dots, and I'll hit the delete key to get rid of them. I'm going to select my data. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to do select data. And the reason I'm doing this is if you notice the title of my data, it's temperature degrees C, but that's not what my sample is called. My sample is called sample 1. So I've selected my data. I'm going to select this particular set of data. I'm going to hit edit. Now, up in the series name, I'm going to hit the little box to the side. I'm going to left click on that one. See how it's highlighting the temperature degrees C? That's not what I want. So I'm going to click where I do want it, and that's sample 1. And I'll hit the box again. And I'll hit OK. And you'll notice it's now sample 1. Now, what I want to do is pull this guy back up because I've got a second sample to do. So I'm going to add a new series. I'll hit Add. Series name. I click the box, and I click the series name I want. Now I can also just hit Enter. That way it pops down without me having to click on it. Move my mouse over. I need to pick my X values. So I'll click the box over here by my X values. Highlight those, and hit Enter again. Repeat for the Y values. Once I've got those down, I hit OK, and then I hit OK again. Now, I have my data on my chart, but I noticed something. I've got this huge white space right down here, so I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to click right on the line. It sometimes takes a little bit of practice. And then I'll right-click, and I'll hit Format Axis. Now, let me drag this into the screen where we can see it. So this gives me this nice field, and I'll move it over here so we can start seeing how it's working. And you'll notice my minimum, I've got no data that really goes below 25. So I'm going to make this 25. I'm going to fix my maximum at 35. And then my major units, that's the distance between each one of these tick marks. I'm going to make that fixed at 5. That looks pretty good to me. Now, we can actually put tick marks on them if you want, say, outside. Those are always nice. They're kind of the smaller version of the long lines we saw earlier. There's no usual reason for minor tick marks, although you might want it for some reason. So I've got that. I'll hit close. I'll go down to this one. I'll right-click on it, format axis. I got the same options again. Right now, I like the way it's doing this one. I'd like to put some tick marks on the outside that's going to put it away from the graph. Personally, just the way I think it looks best. And I'll hit close. So, my graph looks nice, but I still have basically numbers. I can see that they look somewhat linear, which is good. That's what this particular experiment's supposed to show. But I'd like to know what kind of line I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left-click on one of my dots. This is selected sample 2. And I'll right-click, and I'll select Add Trendline. Now, I've got a couple of choices over here. I can do things like color, style, but let's look at Trendline. I can choose what type of equation I'm trying to use. Generally, this is going to be linear. Occasionally, you'll use a couple of the other guys, but usually it's linear. I'm going to display equation on chart. That'll give me my y equals mx plus b. And I want my r squared value as well. That's a goodness of fit. A number between 0 and 1, where 1 is a perfect line and 0 is absolutely nothing. Generally, you want a number above about 0.7. And I'll hit close. I'm going to grab my equation by clicking onto the its box, move that down here. And you'll notice how there's this linear sample 2. I'm going to get rid of that. It's kind of implied by what it was. Now, the label's gone, but the line is still present. I'm going to repeat and do the exact same thing for my sample 1. Trying to hit the right button. Add trend line. It's linear. Hit the 2 charts. Hit close, and then I'll move this up someplace. Now, I've got my y equals mx plus b. I've got my r squared. And I'm good. Let me get rid of this guy right there, and everything's nice and clean. Now, that's all said and good, but what if you actually want to use, say, your slope or your intercept or your r squared in an actual equation inside of Excel? Right now, you can read it off the graph, but let's say you actually want to pop it into an equation series. Well, let's work on that one. So I'm going to click down here, and I'm going to hit equals. I'm going to start out with slope. Now, you'll notice as I type, it starts guessing what I've got. So eventually, I'm going to go for this slope, so SL. And I'm going to highlight. It's going to tell me known y's, comma, known x's. So I highlight my known y's. I hit comma. I highlight my x's. And I close my parentheses, hit enter, and boom, I've got the slope. Notice that that number is the same as that number. Now, that's an awful lot of decimal points, so I'm going to format the cell, go for a number, and say 3 decimal points, which should keep me in line with significant figures. Now I want my intercept, so I'm going to hit equals, then go in, and start typing out intercept. Once again, known y's, known x's. So I highlight my y's, I highlight my x's, I drop my parentheses, hit enter. Note that this number is the same as that number. Once again, I want to format the cell so it's something sane. I'll go number. 2 decimal places is probably okay. In reality, really it should probably be 1. So I'll format cell, kick that down to 1. Okay, so I'm going to do my r squared. It's going to equal, and then I'll do r. However, in this case, it's actually an interesting one where it's not my r. Instead of being r, it's actually going to type in as rsq. Put in the parentheses. Once again, highlight my y's, comma, highlight my x's, parentheses, and enter. This gives me this number, which you'll notice that number is the same as that. Once again, format cell to get some kind of sane number of significant figures. In this case, I'll go 4. Now, the nice part is, because my sample 1 is over here, I can highlight these guys and simply copy and paste over there. And you'll notice that this number, once properly rounded, looks just like that one. And I can reformat that particular cell to give myself an extra decimal place. As now it's grabbed those. And Excel's smart enough to figure out that when you copied it, you wanted to move to a different sample set. So that's Excel. This is getting some information out of this data, and hope you like it. Best of luck, and good data crunching.